Hello everyone, welcome to Homeschool Autism Life. My name is Jamie and this week's video is a plan with me for the Gather Round Homeschool Viking Unit. Now this one, I did have some trouble just getting all of the things to work together, finding books that were more age appropriate. Even videos have been a challenge because even documentaries do reenactments of some of the more brutal things that happened, and I'm not really interested in letting my kids or exposing my kids to some of the violence that happened, but I'm getting there. There's some things that I am doing. We're right at the very beginning. We've finished one lesson so far, but I thought because we are into it that I would share this before I kind of forgot about it in the mad rush of Christmas and planning for that. And have I started? No, I haven't. It's been a time over here of just feeling really not, I'm like running on a treadmill trying to catch up and not really getting anywhere. Life happens, and and so that's why I brought these lovely flowers, because they're cheerful and they're fall-like, and we've been having a lovely fall here. We've gotten like little skiffs of snow, but nothing that stayed, and our bushes are all lovely and red, and so I'm still trying to enjoy this season and then thinking just in the background somewhere about Christmas and the stuff that I have to do. Yeah, because it can get overwhelming. Does anyone ever feel like that? It's just been a season like that for us after the deck project and just being behind. So I'm trying to wrap that all up and put it behind me and feel a little bit more settled and planned and whatever. So we are doing from Gather Round Homeschool, the Viking Unit. Yeah, just got quite a glare on it. We are a Gather Round family. I have loved using Gather Round for so many different reasons. But with the Viking Unit, it went really well with our history. We're doing Middle Ages, and we're also doing Middle Ages in IEW, which is a lot of fun to kind of have it in so many different places because you're making those connections in several different ways, and I'm very excited about that. I also chose to do the lap book. So I'm really pumped and excited. Like I said, we've only got the one done, but it's been a lot of fun to actually put this together. And excuse me, I'm really excited about, again, just changing it up just a touch, just a little bit, so that my kids feel like they are learning it in a different way, in a fun, exciting way. And we just wrapped up Dinosaur Unit. I love that unit. If you haven't tried it, I really encourage you to, just because it's a lot about the history and the, man science versus God's word, and what God's word says versus what man's science, that always is changing and always coming up with some new information. But there's so much of it that we don't necessarily understand or see. When they say this is what the dinosaur looked like, and you find out it's based on like 6 bones, and you're just like, really? So I was really excited about that unit. I am excited about the Viking unit. I'm going to step out of frame because I do this for pretty much every one of our units. And I will leave a link down below to the Owl and Mouse free printable maps of any size. And this one took me a little bit because I didn't want to print the whole world. So I think I had like 3 or 4 extra pages, but this is what I wanted. I wanted the Atlantic Ocean to be center, and then the other ones, so that we can map out the Viking voyages of Leif Erikson and that sort of thing. So I'm just gonna put this over here. Don't fall. All right, perfect. So yeah, that's something that I love to do because it extends not just what we're doing in the lap book, but it's also something that they see every day when they come in to do our lessons and stuff like that. And it's just cool to be able to map it out and see it on something a little bit bigger than your little paper. So for read alouds, I do a bunch of different things. So each month we are working on a fruit of the spirit. I think if you've been on my channel at all, you've probably heard me talk about. It's one of the things that we as a family talk about on a regular basis. How can we use the fruits of the spirit in this situation with your sister or your brother, or your mom's asking you to do something that you don't want to do? What fruit of the spirit can you use to glorify God and be more Christ-like? And so that was every month we've been doing it. So we're finishing up the fruits of the spirit piece for October, and November's is going to be patience. And I'm really excited just how it's going, the conversations that we have. My kids aren't always forthcoming with answering the questions, but these books really kind of force, and not in a bad way, but just a way of thinking about it in a little bit different way, and choosing to pay attention to it, because that's something that I think it's really easy for kids to kind of tune out. And I mean, we adults are like that as well. And so it's really nice to be able to go, okay, I want you to be able to focus on this I'm going to ask you questions. We're going to read some scripture and you're going to need to answer these questions. So another one that we've been slowly working through, I haven't been reading it all at once, but this Motel of Mysteries. I picked this book because it was recommended by Brainwork, Simply Charlotte Mason. And it's talking about how in the year 4022, this archaeological group comes across a motel, and their interpretations of, because apparently something horrible happened in 1980 something to America, North America, and so they come across this dig site of a motel, and just how their guesses are so often wrong. And the reason why I wanted to read this one is because we're talking about the Middle Ages, and there is still so much we don't know for sure in archaeology, and oftentimes we don't hear that in mainstream books. It's presented information as if we know 100% that this is how life was. And so it's just something that I want my kids to keep in the back of their minds, that, you know, it truly is a guess. And we started reading this just part way through for the dinosaur unit. And now we're doing some more here. We'll probably do some more when we do Middle Ages as well. But I want them to have that understanding on a regular basis, that we're making sometimes educated guess, sometimes not at all educated. And oftentimes that means that we get things wrong. If you've ever studied Mayan history and some of the stuff that they thought they knew, and then when they finally were able to translate the hieroglyphs, they realized just how much they had gotten wrong, right? And so it's really important for our kids when we're studying history to recognize that. So another book by Simply Charlotte Mason I've bought is this Castle with Many Rooms, mainly because we're doing Middle Ages, but I have it marked for the Viking Unit era. I might just start from the beginning because we're doing Story of the World, Middle Ages, and so it'll match up with what we've already studied in Middle Ages. So again, I found it hard to find Viking books. And then we might read a few excerpts out of this book. I think I got this one off of bookoutlet.ca. So there's just a couple of chapters in here. It talks about all of Scandinavian history and these people who have done great things, right? And then or done things of note, I should probably say. And so there's going to be some things that I will read, some things that I won't, because I think there's a story about people being drawn and quartered and stuff like that. And my youngest is still quite sensitive to that. So this was definitely not one that I wanted to just give my almost 13-year-old either, because there's just some things that you're like, yeah, you know what, we can talk about that, but you don't need the gory details. So those are our read alouds. Now for their assigned readers, I asked Inara what she wanted to do, because I had a book that was way too young, a book that was not too young but was quite thin. And then she also told me about in her world history, which she's had since she was in kindergarten, there's like a whole bunch of pages of the Vikings in this book. And so she's decided that she's going to read all 3 of them for her signed reader. And that pretty much taps out my Viking books, which is quite funny. So this one, bookoutlet.ca, is just way too young for her, but she thought she would like to read it as well. And then this one is, you know, almost like a comic book, but I got that out bookoutlet.ca as well. But she grabbed it when I first put it out on our magazine rack and just started reading through it. But yeah, like when you have a ferocious reader, who could read adult books, it's this fine line it's a fine line to find ones. But she decided she was going to read that. And then for my Sienna, she is reading this Dragon Riders comic book. Now, it is a comic book of the movie that she has seen 300 bazillion times. I probably wouldn't have necessarily picked this for her, other than I don't really have another good option for her that won't completely overwhelm her. And she did kind of poorly in her reading journal for last month's unit, and so I decided that I was like, okay, I'm going to let you read this book, but you are going to work a lot harder on your reading journal because you're so familiar with it. And the funny thing is like that's the extent of the words. Like some pages have hardly any. And so I just said, I was like, as far as reading, this is not progressing her in any way, shape, or form. But I thought I would take this opportunity this month to kind of push her to do a better job, know what my expectations are for her reading journal. And the reading journals, do I have one with me? Let me go get it. All right. My kids were really struggling with doing book reports. It was something that I was banging my head against that particular homeschool wall. You know what I mean, right? And I found these from Not Consumed Ministries, and I thought, you know what? It's not overwhelming. It's half a page every time they read some of their book. And I thought, you know what? And there's pictures that she can draw and writing places for her to do. And so I really recommend this. You may have to tell your kids that this is what your expectations are. And then the last thing is, for crafts and fun projects, I'm actually doing a lot more with our Story of the World in that activity book that you get with your unit or whatever year you're on. So we're on the second book, Middle Ages. In there, they've got a lot of different crafts and stuff. And so I decided that I was going to pull from that because we're in that area, in that arena. And I'm really liking that. There's a couple of things that we've been watching. So we watched Digging for the Truth. I've talked about them before. The Vikings to America, because they did find North America before Christopher Columbus. That's the name. And then there's a Torchlighter story about St. Patrick that they're going to watch. we looked into the cartoon Vicky the Viking, which you can find on YouTube. It's very old and kind of silly and slapstick comedy-ish, but my girls were making like funny, weird faces, but then they weren't turning it off and they weren't stopping watching. So we might watch a little bit more of that. Of course, How to Train Your Dragon. My daughter has dressed up as a dragon for Halloween. She loves all things dragon, and maybe one day I'll share my library fiasco if you're interested. Just trying to find graphic novels has been just a difficult journey. But Dragon Rider movies, shows, there's lots of that sort of thing. Vic the Viking. And I figured my husband and I would introduce our kids to A Knight's Tale, of course fast forwarding through some parts, but because we're doing Middle Ages and stuff, there's no real Vikings in that one, but because we're doing Middle Ages, I thought that that was going to be a fun movie as well. And yeah, so that's it thus far for our Viking unit. We will probably do, the Viking runes and stuff like that, those types of activities that are in the Story of the World book. So I hope this gives you some ideas. Like I said, I kind of feel like it's a little bit sparse, but I think some of the units are going to be like that sometimes just because of the content, just because some of the content is a little bit harsh at times, and just you need to like figure out what works for your family. I think when my kids are significantly older in high school, if we go over this unit again, then there will be more that I can take on board. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video, and we will talk to you later. Bye.